Welcome back to the 100K 2024 season preview, where we are going through every AFL team, doing the same checklist for everyone, and we are up to the Port Adelaide Power. Darcy Ballard, how are you, brother?
I could not be better, Jev. By the way, if you are watching on YouTube, these shirts are unbelievable. And notice you've got yours on as well. Geez, they feel good and they look good. So these will hopefully be available maybe a little bit in towards the season because we need to know some numbers. But I'm telling you what, Jev, these look good. They're simple, basic, and some hoodies might be on the way as well.
Let's go.
Jev, Port Adelaide, let's crack into it. So they had a very, very good season last year. They finished third on the ladder, 17-6. They went on a 13-0 run, 13 in a row, I believe it was. That's to win 17 games, Jev, and I still don't rate them super highly. So that's why I find it so funny. But first question, obviously we go through the same ones every single time. Competition A graders, Jev. Who do you have? I reckon we'll be seeing eye to eye on this one as well.
Yeah, two for me, Das. Zach Butters, Connor Rozee. How excited would you be as a Port supporter knowing you have these two absolute studs for the next 10 years? With Rozee now the captain and Butters does stuff no one in the comp does. How hard he goes and tough he is, but how clean and classy he can be. I don't argue with anyone that says he's the best player in the league. He's not my personal number one, but I can see the argument. He is an absolute star, Zach Butters. So, yeah, the two for me. Das, what about you?
Yeah, Jeb, I can't disagree with that at all. Those two are the Rolls Royces, and how good's it that, as you said, they have locked these two up, and then we'll get into it as well, but they've got a very young midfield, which is very, very exciting going forward. It's just the rest of the team, and I'm not sure how long they can hold on to it, because they've been thereabouts for, 10 years-ish? Like, they made the prelim. When was the prelim against the Hawks? That was 2013, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
So they've been thereabouts for 10 years, and Travis Boak's coming in to the twilight of his career. But Jev, as the competition A grades, it's those two.
Yeah,
those two would start in any midfield, any side. I don't care how good they are. And Butters looks unbelievable, Jev. There was that video from him from preseason. He looks explosive, a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger.
Oh.
He had an unbelievable season last year, and I cannot wait to see what he does this season.
He's scary courageous sometimes. Does not get hurt or fear contact. He's so tough.
Well, I may as well touch on it now, Jev, before we get into that. Zach Butters' game last year in the wet, how he had 43 disposals, 3 goals, almost kicked 4, and he went at 89% in the wet.
Against the D's on that Friday night or whatever.
Right. I wasn't sure if it was the D's or the Dogs.
Nah, that was... Oh, and he played that one against the Dogs as well when Bont was unbelievable, but Zach Butters was even better. Nah, that one against the D's, it was nearly the performance of the season. I remember I spoke to our Melbourne sources, and they're just Melbourne just played like Zach Butters. They couldn't touch him, basically. They couldn't get near him. He was just fucked. So next question, Das, position A graders. I'll be interested to see who you go here. So you go first, position A graders.
This is why I think Port Adelaide is it's such an iffy team for me. So I've only got the one judging off last year. That's Dan Houston, Jev. He's had an unbelievable last couple of years, all Australian. But I just want to look at other players and just want to look at some of their accolades, but I don't have them as position A graders. Aliir can be and has been. Then you go through, you have Ollie Wines, who I don't have there, who was a 2021 Brownlow medalist. Darcy Byrne-Jones, who was a 2020 All-Australian. Charlie Dixon, who was a 2020 All-Australian. And Travis Boak, who's a 3-time All-Australian. Yet I don't have any of those guys as position A graders, but at their very best are such good footballers. So that's why I find them such a hard team to read. But I would only have Dan Houston, Jev, he had a fantastic season last year. Obviously, Aliir has been one of the better intercept defenders in the game over the last few years. A bit more quiet last year. But yeah, I'd only have Dan Houston there, Jev. What about you?
I'm probably a little bit nicer than you, just a tiny bit, but Dan Houston, All-Australian halfback, beautiful kick, took his game to another level last year. Aliir is still an A-grade defender for mine. When he's on, he absolutely dominates and dictates games. Yeah, some players and teams get a hold of him, but it's very rarely. So I'm going to still give him A-grade defender. And then Does our man, Jeremy Finlayson, he's an A grade at being a good footballer and doing whatever the team needs. He can go into the ruck and look like a midfielder. He can play half forward, centre half forward, lead up and mark everything. Can play full forward and kick a bag of five. He's like Justin Westhoff. He's like their new Justin Westhoff. I fucking love him as a footballer. He's like an A grade general footballer that I would just love at the Swans. But that's it for me. It depends what you think of Jason Horne-Francis and his projection. He has A grader written all over him, but I want to see him do it this year. I want to see him have like a Pat Dangerfield age 21 season from Horne-Francis this year. But when I look at Port's list, I don't see much more super, super high in talent. I just see a lot of good players everywhere, basically.
I would have to agree on that, Jev. Alir, that first set, what was that? It was the final that he had where he had like 7 or 8 intercept marks and just turned that game on its head. But it's just those other guys, Jev. Like, are we going to see the best of Darcy Byrne-Jones again? Charlie Dixon, like, how many more years does he have? But that's where they're sort of blessed, Jev. They do have a lot of big key forwards that we will touch on in a little bit. Notable role players, Jev. Who do you like? Who sticks out?
Yeah, so in the back line, you've got Radigalia, our man Brandon Zerk-Thatcher, like Ryan Burton, good players like that. Midfield, you've still got Boak, Wines, Drew, good players. You've got Miles Bergman, Quinton Narkle, Kane Farrell, guys they really rate on the edges. And then they're big forwards. They've got a lot of big forwards, Dixon, Marshall, Georgiadis, and a few others. So, and then with Rioli, Power Pepper, Byrne-Jones, all these guys, they're good AFL players. I find Port so interesting. I rate them all, but there's just something like I'm looking at Port's list. I like all these players, but there's something about Port I don't necessarily love. What did you write down for notable role players, Das?
There's 2 that I absolutely love in this side. One of them is my dad's favourite player. He calls him Sam Bell Pepper. I don't think he can pronounce his name properly, but Sam Powell Pepper, I love what he does as a forward. I like how much pressure he puts on. He can convert. Last year, you could see so much more. He actually went forward and can kick a lot more goals. But then the other ultimate team player, Jev, is Willem Drew. He looks like Morgs in a Port jersey. It is unbelievable. He will get under the skin. This was the bet, Jev. We needed Bond to get 25 touches against Port Adelaide. He only needed 2 in the last quarter, and Willem Drew got underneath his socks and ran him away from the footy, so he couldn't get near it. Willem Drew for 15 touches as well, Jev. He usually comes up a lot. He's paying like $1.50, $1.60 last year.
Pricey's favourite league.
He sometimes doesn't care if he doesn't get a touch, doesn't get a sniff. But then other times he might get 7 or 8 clearances in a game, does whatever the team needs, and I absolutely love Willem Drew. He'd be one of the best notable role players in the AFL. I'd be happy to put his name in that hat. The next one, Jev, did you have anything for depth?
Yeah, as I said before, their list is absolutely stacked with good AFL players everywhere. The only thing I'm a little worried about is their ruck depth. So they brought across Jordan Sweet from the VFL, who they have high raps, but if he goes down, who's next? Ivan Soldo, Jed McEntee. I know you don't need an A-grade ruckman to win the flag. Teams are showing that, but it definitely helps. Like, they wouldn't want to see Sweet go down and then would you think Ivan Soldo can be a premiership ruckman or that Jed McEntee? Probably not. So I'm sure Port will have a plan and Butters can fucking rover to anyone and he's tough enough to do anything, but you got to worry a little bit about that. And they tried with, who's that hard cunt that just retired from him? That Scott Lysette. Yeah. He kept getting dropped and in and out. So it's hard. It's very hard with Port Adelaide. What did you write down for depth?
I've depth as well. A lot of teams would be absolutely murdering to get a couple of key position players. And up forward, Jev, in the forward 50, you've got Dixon, Georgiades, Finlayson, and Todd Marshall. So Todd Marshall has just re-signed. Georgiades is coming back from ACL? His shoulder?
Yep.
ACL. And Finlayson, Jev, as you mentioned, he can turn some games on their head, especially when he goes forward of the ball. And Dixon, you just don't know what you're going to get from him. Hopefully you get to see another 1 or 2 really good seasons. When he first started, when he was playing at Gold Coast and then went to Port Adelaide, I was convinced he was going to have a 90-goal season. Yeah. He's an absolute brute of a man and he attacks the contest, but it looks like he just gets so down on himself. he's been pretty open about it, like his mental struggles at times with playing footy, but he's got all the talent in the world. Let's hope he can stay super fit this season. But I'm just interested to see where they play these guys, Jev. And that almost ties into the next bit, which is the young guns, because they've got one other big boy, Jev, and that's Ollie Lord. He's only 22 years of age, 197 centimetres and 92 kilos. He's a big boy. They played him a little bit ruck as well and forward. I think it was his first game. He kicked 1 or 2 goals within the first 2 quarters. Everyone's like, oh, who's this kid? He looks super lanky. So I'm sure he's going to fill out a little bit more as well, Jev. I've got a couple more other young guns, but I'll let you go first. Who are some other young guns in this side, Jev, that you absolutely love?
Yeah, I struggled a bit with this because they're a pretty experienced team ready to win. I don't know much about their young guns apart from Horne-Francis. I feel like they play a pretty experienced 22 who's ready to play in prelims rather than play too many kids. So I only really just said Horne-Francis, like, you judge him how you want. You can see there's going to be talent there and you can see the Dangerfield and like comparisons, but then you want to see him do it consistently, not crack the shits, not do stupid stuff on the field. So yeah, I'm a bit 50-50 on Horne-Francis. What did you write down for young guns, Das?
Yeah, obviously had Ollie Lord, Horne-Francis. We know how good his ceiling could be. But Miles Bergman off the half back line, he's only 22. He uses it really, really well. But I remember that. Yes, that's what I reckon. You know, you watch it and you think he's really good. Champion data. Remember Hoyne last year ripped into shreds. Reckons he's one of the worst footballers of all time. But that's why you got to take that shit with a grain of salt. I really like Miles Bergman. Morgs used to work with him in sports as well, Jev. Here's a funny story for you.
That's all I needed to know.
I thought he was honestly going to come back and try and play for Victoria or in a Victorian team, but I'm pretty sure he re-signed. But I think he's a really good footballer as well, Jev. Dark horse All-Australian. You could pick a lot from this side, I reckon, Jev. 100%. But who are you picking?
So Zach Butters is a fucking lock, isn't he? He just has to be. He's in for a big season. So then my dark horse would probably be, I've said his name 100 times, probably Jason Horne-Francis if he has a huge year, or maybe our man Jeremy Finlayson if they're as good as last year, you know, a 50-goal year, helping out in the ruck, whatever. I just love him, but I can't see him making it. But yeah, dark horse would be Jason Horne-Francis. What about you, Das?
Couldn't agree more, Jev. He polled 16 votes in the Brownlow last year. So when he plays well, he sticks out like a sore thumb. Away from stoppages, we've all heard the comparisons to like a Dangerfield, a Fife, how strong he looks, and he just explodes and he can fucking roost the ball 50 metres. So you think with a little bit more confidence that he gets, he might be able to shine a little bit more. And there's always that spot on that half forward line or that bench position. But you never know. 16 votes in the Brownlow, Jev. That's something that you really, really, really need to look at if you're a punter. I'm pretty sure did he outdo Rosé last year or he came close? But that isn't a massive amount of votes. And he's a brute of a man. We went last year, Jev, Port Adelaide and Collingwood, round 2, and we couldn't believe the size of him.
Yeah, he's big boy.
His legs, his hips. He looked massive out there. So another preseason, Jev, and it sounds like Ken Hinkley loves to run these guys in the preseason. So let's hope he comes back fitter, a little bit more mature again, and I'm sure he's going to have a great, great season.
Yeah, he definitely needs to mature. He was away with Trav Boak in Arizona training, so it's good signs. Good signs. If he does mature, it could be scary. You can see a lot of Port Adelaide wins this year, and the Brownlow votes going to Butters, Rosie, Horne-Francis in any order. They'll just absolutely chew up Brownlow votes, those three. Das, the next question, coach, captain, question mark. You take it how you want it. How did you go this one?
Well, I've been saying fire Ken for the last 3 seasons. So they've just re-signed him. He's gone on a 13-game win streak. He's finished inside the top 4 again. I do like the people's opinion of if you haven't succeeded within... I love the idea, of about a coach having around 10 years. I actually really like that. I think once you've gone through that, you've gone through a few waves of people, and I genuinely thought that he was maybe going to go. But I definitely think the appointment of either Rosie, who obviously got the captaincy, him or Butters, that was the right decision. You couldn't hold on to it, give it back to Travis Boak. He's probably only got another season or 2 or an older person. You need to look for the fresh young blood of the club. So I absolutely love that they appointed him. they obviously really respect Ken and they love his image, and his message towards the team. So you just got to back him in when you say that. But I honestly didn't think they were going to have the season they were last year. But yeah, they've obviously gone all in, and Koshy absolutely loves him. What about you?
This is the biggest unknown out of every team we've done, I reckon. I've got no idea on the leadership of Rosie. And if I'm completely honest, I probably saw him as a bit of a me, pretty boy who's just a gun. So I'm intrigued about his leadership. And then Ken has 2 years to go, and then his successor, Josh Carr, has taken the job. So I think this could be the biggest wild card to win the flag or massive downfall, and Josh Carr's the coach by next year sort of thing, like that Malthouse Bucks thing where Malthouse had another year, I'm pretty sure, and then Bucks just sort of took it because it wasn't working. So I find this the biggest, strangest coach captain question mark we answered. I'm sure they rate him internally, but Rosie could be a horrible captain, Das.
Yeah, no, 100%. But you just like to, some of those players that you're not sure how they're going to go. They gave it to Toby Green and he came through. Paddy Cripps was still a bit young. He came through. Bontempelli was young and came through.
Yeah,
when these guys have talent, you give them a little bit more responsibility. You think inside the four walls, they've probably got that decision correct. And I'm sure Butters would maybe like to have that, but he can probably play a little bit more freely. So into the next one, Jev. So the strength of schedule, Port Adelaide. So number 1, judging off the rankings last year, number 1 would be the easiest schedule. Number 18 would be ranked the hardest. Port Adelaide have the 17th ranked schedule, so the second hardest.
Wow. So we'll start with notable home games. They play 4 out of their first 5 games at home. They probably win all 4. I can see them starting 5-0, Das. They also get the Blues, Lions, Saints at home. If they're as good as they say they are, they should only lose maybe one or 2 home games. What did you have for notable home games?
Yeah, well, they've got 14 at home. So they've got 14 games in Adelaide. So the Eagles, Melbourne, Essendon, Freo, St Kilda, Adelaide, obviously twice, Freo, Hawthorn, Carlton, Brisbane, Bulldogs, Richmond, Sydney. So they get Carlton, Brisbane, Sydney, Bulldogs at home. And then you think that they're going to, Melbourne, you think they're going to pick off the Eagles, Essendon, Freo twice, actually, and Richmond.
It's actually, yeah, you go.
Those teams, I just feel them and Adelaide, you got to give them like the points at home. Like they're just good at home.
When you say it like that, and they get Gather Round at home, they get Adelaide twice at home, and then they still get their 11 home games. It's actually a pretty big advantage, Gather Round, isn't it?
100%.
Yeah. Anyway, and then notable away games. What did you write to notable away games, Das?
Like, I don't even mind this schedule. So they got Richmond, and then Collingwood, so they come back to Melbourne. The Cats away, North is here, Giants away, St Kilda here, Suns away, Carlton, Melbourne, Freo. So they're interstate games. You say, if you look at Giants, Freo, the Suns, so they've got to go up there, and then the rest are pretty much in Melbourne. So I know it says the 18th ranked schedule, but I actually don't mind it. What about you?
Yeah, there actually isn't many notable away games in the first 15 weeks. They go to the G to play the Pies, which they'll actually want to do. Like, they can see that as a grand final preview. You want to go to the G and play the best. GWS won't be easy. Then tough finish. They go to Carlton, to Gold Coast, to Melbourne, and to St Kilda. So with their schedule, with their back half schedule, they definitely need to get off to a hot start. But I can see them, as I said, I reckon they're going to be 5-0 flying to start the season. So, yeah.
It's going to be interesting. So let's get into their over-unders. What do you have Port Adelaide's floor of wins at? Remember, we haven't checked the over-unders. What do you have their floor of wins?
So their floor of wins for me is 11 win side, isn't it? I like their first half schedule. I hate their back half schedule. I can see why it's the 17th ranked. If you get the whole fixture up and you look at the back half schedule, it's pretty tough. So 11 win side for me. What did you have?
The exact same, Jev. I had 11 wins. That's just missing finals. I think their floor is that. They've got 14 home games, really good games. You think they're going to win most of them. And then they're just going to piece up some teams, I think, on the road. So if they're a contender like everyone else thinks they are, they're just going to find a way to get some of those wins. So I had 11 wins as well. What'd you have their ceiling as?
Yeah, their ceiling is right up there. 16, 17, 18 win team. They won 17 last year and finished third. They're probably better than they were last year. So yeah, I think it's around that 17, 18 mark again. What did you write down?
I had 17, 100, exact same as
Yeah.
you. So I had 17 wins there. So the over-under, I imagine it's probably at 13 and a half.
Yeah, I wrote 14 and a half, I reckon. I think they're pretty highly rated. So it's it's a tough one because we keep saying how good the competition is. There has to be a shit team eventually, or who knows?
Well, do you have a hot take for the Port Adelaide Power this season, Jeff?
I can't make my mind up on Port. I had some people tell me they'll play in a grand final and how good they're going to be, and I can see it. Looking at their list, I can see it. But Das, I've said it 100 times. There's going to be a bloody good team miss the 8. And I feel like Port are more likely to miss the 8 than play in a prelim. I don't know why. That's just the feeling in my bones, Das. I reckon they might be the team that is that good team that misses the 8 more likely than plays in a prelim. But saying that, what do I fucking know? It's projections before the season. Das, do you have a hot take on Port?
Yeah, I do. I remember that when we we did our live Brownlow show, and I was doing a couple of live bets, and I was waiting, and sometimes it takes a few players, a couple of seasons to really get noticed. And when this guy got hot, he got hot, and I'm like, he's going to be my pick next year. And Jev, I can say right now, so many of my futures are going to go into Zach Butters for the Brownlow at 15 to 1. I love the way that he plays. He's explosive. Anytime that they win, he gets the votes. He happens to get more threes than Rosie did. I just love the way that he plays. He might play a little bit more freely. He's a gun inside, outside. He's so crafty, and he just doesn't fuck up. And he's so tough, and I love him. So Zach Butters, I'm going to have a lot of futures into Zach Butters for the Brownlow at 15 to 1. I think they're juicy odds. If you like your players, get on them early because as soon as the season starts, prices come smashing in, and it's not until they do an injury that they go out, and then you're really going to see that price back in. So if you like your players, get on them. I'm going to have Butters into the Blues a million times, Jev, but I really like Butters, Jev, and he will be my very early pick for the Brownlow medal.
I actually love that take. Now that we've looked through it, so he's a vote getter. They play 14 home games, as we said. If he gets 14 times 2 votes every home game they play, that's 28 votes. That nearly wins the Brownlow this year. That means he has to get like 3 votes away from home. So it's actually a great, when you say it like that, vote getter, 14 home games, they're going to be right up there in the 8. Like, yeah, 15 to 1 is fucking good value, Das. That is a great bet.
I reckon we got to circle those top 8 over the last 3 or 4 years. I'm not sure who said it, but they reckon the Brownlow's only really down to 12 players. I actually tend to agree. A lot of those same players get those same votes, unless if someone really comes from the clouds. But yeah, I'm picking Zach Butters this year, Jev. He's my early prediction. And yeah, but as you said, where would you take the over-under if it's 14.5? Because I agree with you. I don't think, like, before I even looked at this, I had to ask me where I think Port Adelaide is going to finish, I would have maybe said like even outside the 8. But then after I go through this, I'm like, oh, fuck. Even though it says they got a hard schedule, I'm like, I just think that they're going to win like a lot of those games. But I think it's a tough one. It's a push if it's 13.5. But yeah, I agree that they're more likely to slide than climb again.
Yeah. You know, there's the Bulldogs joke. If you go and watch the Dogs, it's just 2 hours of Norton and Jamara jumping at the same footy. I wonder if watching Port Adelaide this year will be 2 hours of Radigalea and Aliir not playing on anyone and just both playing loose. Guys just getting out the back kicking sausages because they're just looking to take the intercept mark. So
yeah. On Zerk Thatcher.
He can't get as many goals kicked on him as he did last year. Now that he's got a bit of protection from the league. I actually think he'll have a good season, Das. He was thrown to the wolves last year by the Bombers. When you got Radigalea and Aliir around you, he can just, like we always say with Tomlinson, so who knows?
Oh, no, Jeff. They got the Cats away.
Tom Hawkins will get another year contract on that.
Can we circle that game? Can we circle it?
That is so funny. Predict now how many goals Tom Hawkins kicks on Zerk Thatcher.
Oh, the lines, it's the over-under's 8.
They might put Radigalea on him, just 2 big bodies going toe-to-toe.
he's going to fucking kick
I find
20
the top
snags.
8. I find the top 8 so fucking hard this year.
But it's literally like you can, I don't think you can genuinely do it and say, I told you so. Like there's 14, 15 teams and you just pick your favourites. Like it's
100%.
It's tough, but this is why we love it. All right, Jev, that was Port Adelaide. If the line's 13.5, I don't know. We're going to have to wait till we do all the other teams. But it's more positive than negative. I think they're going to have a good season.
Next up, the Richmond Tigers. See you then, dude.
Let's go.